Did you grow up seeing the food pyramid in school that told us to eat 6 or 11 servings of bread and pasta every day?
Yes, bread, cereal, pasta all the time. And then fat and sugar was, of course, the enemy.
Yes. Butter was bad. Eggs were bad. Steak, well, fatty cuts of steak were bad. And everything had to be low fat.
But now we're hearing something completely different. It's shifted. And so now we're told to eat more protein, healthy fats, and real food.
So what happened is the question. When did nutrition flip upside down?
So today we're going to talk about the history of how we were taught to eat and why so many people are now rethinking it.
It's a beautiful chaos, this roller coaster ride. The ups, the downs are spinning all around inside. It's a beautiful chaos. Sometimes I love, sometimes I hate. Have to pause, renegotiate, but with gratitude I appreciate this beautiful chaos.
This is Beautiful Chaos, and today's episode is the Great Nutrition Flip. I am Tammy Ramsey,
I'm Staci Miller.
and here we go.
Yeah.
So I think that if we look back historically, we can find out what's happened to us as humans. And I might want to point out, I do want to put out, you go to museums and you look at people's clothing in like the 1920s or the 1900s and they're teeny tiny dresses. It's like for a child, but it's a full grown adult's wedding dress. And their little shoes, their little feet are like teeny tiny little skinny little things. If you go into historic museums with the homes and they have furniture and stuff, their beds were shorter and smaller. So, there's a whole different way that people ate, and definitely more at-home cooking.
Right.
Especially all through up until 1950s, probably 1960s too.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's kind of the feminist movement lines up with it, because when we took women out of the home and put them to work, that's when we had to start finding more convenient ways of feeding ourselves, faster ways of getting dinner on the table, things like that. We didn't have stay-at-home moms that were cooking the home-cooked meals anymore.
Yeah. And that could be a full-time job, because you'd be responsible for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I mean, we still are in a sense, but anyways, but back in the 50s, let's just go with the 50s and before, butter, eggs, beef, whole milk were all normal foods. My grandmother cooked with lard. There was a tub of lard on the stove. That was what she cooked with. And there was very little ultra-processed foods.
Or none. Yeah. And I think people always cook from scratch more. I think that's what kept a stay-at-home parent busy, because it wasn't just that they were cooking breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They were cooking things from scratch. So they were making homemade bread, homemade rolls, preparing a lasagna from scratch, whatever it was. Right. But everything was being made from scratch. Fast food and packaged foods were really rare. There was, it was, I think in the 50s is when we first got our TV dinners, because it was around the time, maybe it was actually the 60s. I want to say that it was around the time of the space race. That ended up being kind of connected a little bit. Yeah. The other thing is that portion sizes were smaller. We weren't eating as much.
There was no supersizing any meal if you did get to go out and eat. And that was the other thing. If you went to a restaurant, it was usually like a once a month thing, or and same with the pop. I was talking to somebody, a soda or a pop, whatever you want to call it. They were talking about how it used to be when they were younger, which would be about 50 years ago, that it was a once a week treat. It was a treat to go to the store to get a Coke. Yeah. One Coke. Yeah. And now we are drinking, a lot of people drink 2 or 3 Cokes a day. Plus, and your coffee, not your coffee specifically, some coffees, and don't freak out people and get angry, but some of your coffees, if you're getting like a caramel macchiato, which is what I used to get, and I loved it, but it's full of fructose and sugar and syrups and things that are very unhealthy for us. But
there's a lot of sugar being added to coffee. Mine does not have hardly any sugar in it at all. But I think that, and I know we're about to dive into the low fat area. The other thing about that is the sugar free. I do not like the taste of synthetic sugar. So I either will get my coffee without anything in it. It's just coffee and milk. Or I will just get it half sweet is my new go-to. And so it's like 1 pump of sweetener of whatever, like flavor, caramel or whatever, because I don't like the taste of artificial sweeteners. I don't like that chemical taste. I also, when we started this low fat thing in the United States, after we started doing the, trying to eat healthy, and we thought low fat was the way to do it, I didn't like the taste of any of that either. I remember telling myself, I'll just eat less of whatever is the high fat option, because the low fat just doesn't taste right, especially if it was something that was processed. You're getting like low fat potato chips. They were gross.
Yeah, I was the opposite of you, because I was always, so about when that happened, well, when I was aware of it, was about when I had Ashley. So it wasn't until the 90s when I was really aware of, like, everything's got to be low fat. And no sugar and all this. And
I think it was commercialized a lot more in the 90s. And that's why.
90s. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I remember thinking, I was getting all this low fat stuff, and I don't know that I was eating excessively, but I definitely shopped the aisle and I would eat it. And it was like some of those things are like, oh, rice cakes.
Yeah.
Like eating cardboard. But anyway, so that was very heavily commercialized, and it was very pushed for certain reasons. And when we look at this bigger picture, it all started with the original pyramid and how we were expected to eat, which was the more grains were on the bottom, fruits and vegetables, and then your meats and your dairy, and then on the very top were your fats. They didn't even differentiate between healthy fats and non-healthy fats. And the sugar deal, like, we were talking about having 1 Coke per week. That's about all the sugar your body can handle in a week's time. And I feel that this whole fake sugar, your body is still reading that as sugar.
Right.
But then it gets to the cells on a cellular level and goes, okay, so now I see this as it acted like a sugar, it felt like a sugar, but now I don't know what to do with it, because at this level it's not a sugar anymore. And I feel like that's when it gets stored in your fat cells. So all this drinking of sugar-free stuff is really actually causing you more harm. But anyways.
Well, and to talk about this pyramid a little bit more, I think it's important to note that when we put grains on the bottom, there's a lot of things that come with that, because that was our most important. We have lots and lots of grains every day. And so what around the same time frame is when the breakfast cereal industry was starting to boom. And so where did we give the most benefit to this food pyramid was to breakfast cereals and grain farmers, for bread and things like that. But also it was a lot less expensive for a United States consumer to buy a box of cereal, a loaf of bread, pastas that just sit in your cabinet and have a shelf life forever and ever, macaroni and cheese, things like that were just 30 cents a box or something, than the cost at the time of maybe a steak. A steak was such
and fresh vegetables.
I feel like especially like the time that you're talking about, around the 90s, when the food pyramid was super commercialized and we were told to stay away from too much meat, that a steak was such a luxury. If somebody was eating a steak, it was like they got their taxes back, they got paid, it was like their special meal of the week. It was some sort of
celebration, like your anniversary or birthday.
Otherwise it was special. Like hamburger helper or ground beef, and that was it, because that was the affordable beef.
Heavy processed. Well, and what I think is interesting too is that the original food pyramid, it was not created by scientists or medical doctors or anybody that knew anything about what our bodies needed.
Right.
What it was with this room full of people that was partially had all these cereal, the 3 top places in there going, hey, we really need to push this because it's better for our country, because they can get, their $2,400 calorie intake with these foods in this manner,
Right.
and it's going to last them longer, and it's going to feed more of America at a lower cost.
And it's going to be quick. It's quick to eat a bowl of cereal. It's quick to eat a sandwich on a piece of bread with some peanut butter. It's easy. And, just for the sake of the commercialization, dairy was pretty high up on the pyramid. It was supposed to be really sparse, and it wasn't very long after this pyramid became really big that the dairy farmers came out and said, we're not selling enough milk. This isn't okay. What can we do? And how can we sell more milk? And that's where we got the Got Milk campaign.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I always like that. There's that movie with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd, and they Trading Places. And I remember the two big rich guys were talking about making orange juice higher on the market and lowering pork bellies. And so they started spinning this story, and they were just money makers. They weren't anybody that was anybody, but they just decided to skew everyone's perspective on orange juice, and that it was the number one thing that you should be eating, not pork bellies. So anyways, I thought that was interesting because I think there's some truth to that.
Yeah.
So it was approved by our government, this deal. And that lowered, all of a sudden, now we're lowering our fat intake.
Yeah, we were told
eating more carbs and
fat
grains.
made you fat was what we were taught.
Right. Cholesterol and fat were dangerous.
And then, that's when the low fat thing showed up everywhere. And if, like you were saying, it was so easy to go into the store and see this food and the low fat version and this food and the low fat version. And you just grab the one that said low fat and assume that you were doing so many great things for your body because you were getting all these low fat ones, not knowing that when they cut the fat out, they had to substitute it probably with something
sugar,
synthetic, not something our bodies are supposed to process.
Right. And sugar was a really big one that replaced fat because they needed something, because fat's what gives everything flavor. Like if you're cooking a burger over the grill, it's the fat that gives the juicy flavor.
Yeah.
Same with the steak, but fat is what is a flavor, so flavorful. So then they had to do, we're going to have to put sugar in this and refine and
high
fructose
corn syrup, right,
to make it all taste good, because that was important too, that the food had to taste good so people would want to eat it. So it definitely drove this the markets for all of these products, and I do agree with you. You see it on the shelf, you're going to go with low fat. And I want to say, as an advertiser, someone that worked in marketing for many years on television, there's like a very thin line where you can say it's fat-free. It only has to be a certain percentage fat-free. Right. It doesn't have to be totally fat-free. It doesn't, and it can be that swap. Yeah. So it's deceiving. Let me just say that. A lot of marketing is very deceiving, because even when I would do commercials, I'd be like, okay, there's this line. I can't say this, but I could say it acts like this, or it tastes
the
like
one that
this.
always got me, and I know that this is talking about sugary stuff, but when you're reading the ingredients on like an ice cream, for example, and it's like, oh, vanilla ice cream with chocolatey pieces. What does chocolatey mean? It's not real chocolate. Chocolatey means that it tastes like chocolate, it's flavored like chocolate, but it's actually not chocolate. There's not enough cacao in it for them to quantify it as actual chocolate, so they will call it chocolatey. So definitely be reading your labels. And I think that one of the big things that we're gonna take away from today's episode is going to be just real food. I don't have to read the label on a potato. Right. I don't have to read the label on a steak. I know where it came from.
And you're not going to overeat on any of those. You can't have 2 baked potatoes and still want more, or even 1 baked potato and want more, or a big 6-ounce steak. You can't be, order me another one. You're not going to binge.
Your ingredient list on a steak is beef. Yeah. It's not a bunch of chemicals you've never heard of before.
Yeah. And those are the things that I think that don't satiate you. And fats. So fats and oils we were told to avoid, but really like your meat, anything meat fat, which is all natural. Avocados are a fat. Olives are a fat. There are very healthy fats.
Salmon has really good fat.
Salmon. Sardines. Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
So there's healthy fat is very good for you. And and then oils wise, anything that's the least amount processed. So avocado oil is the best oil that you can have, because it's only got one step. That
Cold press.
Yeah. Boom. Done.
Also remember, we are not doctors. We are not experts. We are giving you our opinions on this and what is working for us or what we've heard from other specialists. Please make sure that you're doing the best for yourself when it comes to your diet. We are just here to give you some talking points and something to think about. Most importantly, just something to think about. Hopefully you're thinking about what you're putting in your body, what you're eating.
Because it does 100% affect you. With the pyramid the way it was, with all the grains on the bottom and saying that you're supposed to have more grains and avoid fat, what happened from the 1950s till now is the amount of autoimmune diseases, diabetes, like dementia, which is the new type 3 diabetes. Right. All these diseases that we are facing that have like tripled, MS, all caused from what you're putting in your body and then how you're treating your body. And then it flips these switches that say, all right, now we don't know what to do. So boom, MS. Like
your body just starts attacking itself.
It does.
And those of you who have any autoimmune diseases, you never have one.
Right.
You always have multiple autoimmune diseases and are more susceptible to additional ones because at the end of the day, your body is just attacking itself.
Yeah, thyroid problems too. Because I've just been researching because I have thyroid issues and I found I have an autoimmune and I'm like, oh, so this could actually be attacking my thyroid and why my thyroid doesn't work properly. But anyway, I digress. So yeah, it is definitely attacking your body in some way. That's what an autoimmune is. So, and one thing that I want to say, and not everybody may agree, and I'm going to tell you my story is, so I was a health coach for about 8 or 9 years, and and all the research, because I was going by what the government told us was good, was pyramid, and that eggs were bad for you, and that they're full of cholesterol and all the things. Well, so my husband, who anybody that knows him, is thin. He's in good shape. He doesn't take any medication at all for anything. The man is like the stellar of good health. And he eats 3 eggs a day, 7 days a week without fail. He eats a couple pieces of bacon or a piece of sausage, and he has avocado. Now he added kiwi fruit to this for... anyway, so, and he researches and he watches things, but he said, well, I listened to my body because I kept saying, you can't eat 3 eggs a day. It's so bad for you. And he's like, well, I'm listening to my body. My body says, I need these eggs. I said, okay. Well, then I start down this rabbit hole of investigation and trying to lower my cholesterol, and come to find out, eggs are actually good for you. They're the most wholesome food that you can eat. And the best way to eat them is with the yellow, a little soft boiled or over easy, because the way that your body digests things, it utilizes that cholesterol in the yolk, which is most of your protein also. It utilizes that to help digest and all the things. And before, it doesn't even break down into cholesterol. That is not what gives you high cholesterol. But research that yourself, because that's just what I found for me. I eat 3 eggs a day now, and my cholesterol has really gone down. So let's talk processed foods, how they exploded in the 80s or 90s. We kind of did because,
convenience.
Really
we've gotten busier and busier, and with technology, it's not gotten any better. It's just gotten busier and busier. So it's so much easier to grab something in a wrapper or a package than it is to try and cook something.
Well, especially if kids, you're running around kids that you've got to go here and there and everywhere. And a lot of times you don't have time to plan a dinner or have something, pre-made and ready to go.
Right.
And so, we do go for, and that's something I keep thinking about is I wish I'd have known what I'd known when I was raising my kids.
Right.
Because then they would have never had any struggles with their weight or with their health if they knew what I knew and could eat, in a more healthy way and not eat any processed foods. And then I'm trying to do all these things and share that now, and they're all like,
well, they're busy because they're in that they're in the young part of life where they're trying to run kids and run businesses, and they are very busy. I think that we have to balance our life as best we can, even if that means, and you've had Mary on here quite a few times. Somehow I'm never here when Mary's here, but we're going to make that happen at some point. But, Mary has said recently, I follow her on her Facebook videos and whatnot, and she said, there's no excuse to not plan, because all you need is to cook one day a week to have everything planned out for the week. So, we all make the time to do our grocery shopping or get our grocery orders once a week. That also has to be the day that you're portioning out everything, that you're pre-cooking 1 or 2 meals that you can portion out into containers for the week, so that your grab and go is a prepackaged meal. You should, I don't know if I learned this from Mary or from somebody else, but you should never take your produce and just put it in the fridge when you come home from the store.
Because it'll just rot.
Yeah, wash your vegetables, cut them up, put them into individual baggies, wash your fruits, cut them up, put them into individual containers, however it is that you want them, but get them into the fridge the way that you can grab and go and immediately take from that. And so when you are even in that busy stage of life, you cut out that one afternoon a week to prep and plan and have everything ready to go. Then when the kids are running through the fridge, and they can either grab, a sugary drink, or they can, pull open the drawer, grab a bag of fruit, a yogurt, a bag of vegetables, whatever it is, they're going to grab the things that are easily accessible, whether they would normally be their first choice or not.
Right, whether they're healthy or not. And one of the things that she does is teaches her kids, what's on your plate. Make sure you have a protein, make sure you have a vegetable, like everything is laid out. You're not missing, like some kids might want to just, let me just eat a baked potato. Well, where's your meat?
Yeah.
You've got to have some meat with that. That's what's going to build your muscles. That's what's going to satisfy you and keep you out of the cupboard eating sweets. Mm-hmm. The other thing that'll keep you out of the cupboard eating sweets is to not have the sweets in the cupboard to begin with.
Right.
Stop that at the grocery store. Mm-hmm. But yeah, food prepping is awesome. And if you're not a food prepper, mm-hmm. Like if it's something you absolutely can't stand, what if you planned a menu? Because sometimes just planning a menu and knowing what you're going to have and not feeling like you have to have it on these days. It's got to be flexible. Mm-hmm. Because I found that, things change during the week when you're running kids. And so today's meal might be tomorrow's meal, and we might have to flip them around because that one's easier to fix than this one is. Mm-hmm. But then you've gone to the grocery store with your planned menu, and you have all the groceries that you need to create those healthy foods. So yeah, I love the thought of spending just the afternoon after you get your groceries and food prepping and having everything easy, accessible to grab. So we already talked about all the different things that eating processed foods basically can cause, inflammation, autoimmune issues, diabetes, obesity. Those are the shifts that happened during this time of eat low fat and stuff. So now, and I'm going to say, that was one really thing I was excited about for Kennedy to be in there in charge of, was to flip this pyramid around, because I have known for years, you've probably known for years, it just didn't seem right. I mean, if you were ever trying to lose weight, the first thing you do is you cut out bread and you limit your pastas, or you limit your starches, like you just knew. So that right there tells me that that was not right. But I love that it's now flipped, and that we're focused more on protein, and we're focused more on whole foods
right,
instead of processed foods, and that it's okay to eat healthy fats, and butter is better for you than margarine is.
Right. And it tastes better. So
Way
again,
better.
we're going to have both of these food pyramids linked for you. So I recommend taking a look at it, because the other thing that I like about the new food pyramid is it's not completely boxed off into very separate sections. Everything's kind of intertwined a little, which really balances out what we're eating a lot better. So you do have your meat and a little bit of dairy and a lot of vegetable, like whole foods at the top, but then it's like a little bit of salmon and dairy and fruit, and then, but again, it all just sort of blends in, and then we get down to the bottom, and then we're talking like a little bit of bread and a little bit of grain. And again, whole grains are always going to be better. If you're going to be cooking pasta, there's so many options out there now for like chickpea pasta and whole grain pasta, and the chickpea one, so good. It tastes just like regular pasta, but you're getting a ton more protein and way less calories. But
yeah, I do spaghetti squash.
Yeah,
as my base, as like a pasta. And I actually had run it. I didn't have one, and I'd made the kids spaghetti, and I gave them a mix of whole grain and regular pasta, so they wouldn't complain. And I tasted it, and I was like, that's just not even as good as my spaghetti.
Yeah, once you get used to eating whole foods and better foods, then everything starts to taste chemically because it is full of chemicals, a lot of the stuff that we've been eating.
It is. And we do get desensitized, because I will tell you, before I started my journey, I felt like the Michelin Man. I had reached a point where I just felt like everything was swollen. Every bit of me was swollen. I would wake up in the morning and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I can't move my fingers. Like, it would take me quite a while to even just get up and get moving and be able to move. And I didn't realize how many things were affecting me. I would eat peppers all the time. I can't eat peppers. You might be able to eat peppers. Peppers are healthy. They're supposed to be an anti-inflammatory, but they were not for me.
Right.
But I after I cut things out and started adding things back in, all of a sudden it was like, wow. Within 24 hours, I could feel what was happening within my body. And that's where we're all different. We all respond different. We all have different things. I don't have a gallbladder, so I don't, if I eat things that are high in oxalates, I don't process it correctly. So my body just, and so, like carrots and kale, things that I loved and were eating like crazy, were actually hurting me because they're full of oxalates, and I just can't do it. But everybody's different, and you have to do what fits for you. Now, if you struggle with autoimmune and you have a lot of inflammation, I will tell you that doing the carnivore diet, or the carnivore diet's the best, because it lowers inflammation as far as I'm concerned. And in a couple of weeks, we're going to be interviewing Dr. Andrew Rosenberg, and he's going to talk about the carnivore diet and things. But that helps your inflammation to just totally dissipate. But it is all about what's good for your body.
Right.
It's what works for you and what helps you.
Right. And I think that carnivore is a great option, and if that works for you, that's great. I've never been a huge fan of meat. I've gotten myself a lot better about eating more meat and bringing more protein through meat into my diet, but I also will sneak protein in through blended cottage cheese and other ways of getting my protein goals. So it's all about finding a balance and whatever works best for you. So it might be, some type of meat with whole grain pasta, because you still want those kinds of carbs or bread filling. Sourdough bread is also a really great option, because that's way more gut healthy and it's a lot better for your digestive system. But you have to find what works best for you. But just remembering to just read the labels, focus on whole foods, focus on all the things that you can pronounce.
Yeah. And if you've changed at Whole Foods, if you can do that, I will tell you that I think that it balances your everything. Like, your hormones get a little more balanced, your mental capacity. Like, I was diagnosed as bipolar, like, I don't know, 25, 26 years ago. It's been a long time. And I was on and off of medication. And gosh, I haven't been medicated for probably 2.5, 3 years. It's been a couple of years since when you worked out here.
Okay.
So how long has that been? But anyways, yeah, she's looking going, there's sometimes you need some medication, sweetie.
Yeah, probably.
But my, I have definitely, I don't get as emotional. And like, Kevin has noticed, he's like, well, you're just happy. You seem to be happier. And I'm like, yeah, I feel like I am. And I feel like for me, because I'm also pre-diabetic. So if you're pre-diabetic out there, anytime I would eat anything that was high in sugar or fructose or drink a coffee with sugar, even if I would always do the sugar-free.
Yeah.
But, like I said, it's just the same thing in your body.
Yeah.
But I would do those things and then I would be emotional. Like I would be, somebody would say something, I would just be like, oh yeah. And then I realized after I quit eating all the stuff and eating sugary stuff, I was like, oh, I don't feel that way.
Right.
I don't feel like my emotions are out of my control.
Yeah. Well, I think another thing that's important to say is, sometimes the argument becomes, well, it's really expensive to eat whole foods. It's really expensive to eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. They're not easy to come by. But look for farmers markets in your area. You're always going to find produce a little bit cheaper at a farmer's market. And a lot of times they're held weekly, depending on where you're at. And you shouldn't be buying enough fruits and vegetables for your month of groceries because you don't want your stuff going bad while you're trying to get through it and eat it. But maybe you're buying enough for that week. And again, properly taking care of those when you come home. And there's a lot of research you can do on the internet about, mason jars and keeping your vegetables in water. And there's a ton of different ways to keep your vegetables and your fruits fresh throughout the week. But going to the farmer's market on the weekend, coming home, prepping that fresh produce, putting it away appropriately so that you can pull from it all week and it lasts you the entire week is a great option. There's also in bigger cities and in sometimes even smaller cities, you can do like farmers boxes or produce boxes that you can get through like different co-ops, and they'll bring you a box directly to your house, or you go pick up a box, and it's all just different types of fresh produce that you make the best of whatever it is that you get out of that box. And I think meat the same way. I think, appropriately purchasing meat how it fits right with your budget, right? Some people think it's great to buy a half a beef. That's great. If that works for you, go buy a half a beef once a year. If it works better for you to maybe go to Costco and get, a big slab of beef, and then you're chopping it up and you're putting it in freezer bags and saving it so that you can use it for maybe a couple of months off of that. Or if it's easier to just buy things weekly. If you know somebody who raises cows, maybe, working that out somehow with some, local farmer. I know people who will like drive harvest just to get a box of like a quarter beef or something from whoever they're driving for that season. And they work it out that way to where they drive and they get a beef for it. Anyways, there's lots of different ways, but being conscientious about what you're buying, because we can't buy whole foods and fresh meat, fresh produce, and treat it as though we would have if we were buying canned foods, processed meats, processed sugars, processed foods, right? It's not going to stay shelf stable forever. So purchase it appropriately and take care of it when it's being stored, and eat it. Don't buy really healthy stuff and go out to dinner. And you can save money if you just say, all right, we're just going to quit going out to eat to dinner. We're going to maybe go out to eat once a week or once a month, depending on where your budget is. So if you take what you would spend to go out to eat and feed your family, right? I mean, really, if you break it down, base it on your health, how you're going to feel, and the cost, the cost probably isn't as off as you think it is. And I just feel like it is. Well, before we kind of tie it all up here, I wanted to sort of tie back to something we talked about in the very beginning of this episode and just expand on it a little bit more. We were talking about, in the beginning, how people were, smaller little dress sizes back in the day and that kind of thing. I think a few things to remember. One is, people were a lot more active.
Yes.
Back then also, so there was a lot more moving around. So we do need to be active still, even though we live in a very busy world and sometimes we have a very sedentary job. We still have to, make up for that somehow, whether we're walking every day, going to the gym, whatever it looks like. So make sure that you're moving. But the other thing to think about is how you were talking about, your grandma cooked with lard. I remember watching my grandma cook for my grandpa well into their 70s, maybe even at least well into their 70s. And she made, steaks in a full fat of lard or oil or something. I think it was lard. And like breaded it in crushed up saltine crackers. And I thought, man, this is going to be delicious. But man, they shouldn't be eating like this. Yeah. But then you think about it again and you think, my grandma's been feeding my grandpa like that their whole life. And they've been married more than 50 years at this time. And, you know, here they are well into their 70s and still active and moving around. So, you know, it's important to just sort of think about what was the purpose for creating these pyramids? Yes. Why were we being driven to sort of purchase things in a different way? Is big government really looking out for everybody? Probably not. And so if people were very healthily living on whole foods and high fats, however long ago, we can probably do it again. And we just need to be more conscientious about what we're eating and who we're listening to. So don't listen to us if you don't want to, but find somebody to listen to. Listen to your doctor, do your own research. Us, doctors that we recommend, listen to them a little more, however you see fit, but make the best decisions for your health and your family and your body.
Yep. And a few doctors that I watch on YouTube, so all this information is free to you, is Dr. Jordan Peterson. He just shares his own journey as a carnivore, and then he also interviews a lot of people, a lot of other doctors. Dr. Peter Attia, Attia, he's just brilliant, and he can talk about all kinds of things, but it's all about whole foods and how we need higher protein. Dr. Ben Bickman, he is out of Utah, and I can't remember which university it is, but he's a professor, and he's a researcher and a scientist. And so he talks about insulin resistance and metabolic issues and all of the things. And then my functional doctor, Andrew Rosenberg, out of Red Mountain Nature Clinic. He's pretty awesome. And Dr. Stan, Sten Ekberg, Ekberg. He was an Olympian champion. And I've been listening to him lately, and he's not carnivore or keto, but he is whole foods. And he lists out on several episodes, like these are things that can help with insulin resistance, you know, avoid these, eat these. Mm-hmm. These are things that can help with, you know, inflammation, like whatever. He kind of breaks things down and makes it seem more doable. Mm-hmm. It's not so like cut and dry. So those are several that I listen to that I've really, really found for me changing and doing those things have really helped. So I think the biggest lesson out of all of this is, like you said earlier, just real food matters. Right.
And it's never going to be about perfection. Remember that anything in moderation is going to be okay. So if you're trying to create some new habits, do what works best for your body. When you do a bad habit, just try and do the next good thing that you can in order to keep building good habits.
Yeah. And a great book to read about habits is Atomic Habits. It's a really good one because you can't just get rid of a bad one. You have to create a habit that can replace that one. Right. So, and then think about and question, you know, why we were taught the things that we were taught. There was a benefit at one time, like you said, but that time has passed. We don't need to be eating the way that they had us eating. Because it was causing a lot of issues. And so with that being said, be sure to like us on Facebook, Instagram, follow us, subscribe to us on YouTube if you want to watch us on video, or just download us on a podcast. So then you'll get reminded every week, because we do these. We release these every week.
Every Monday. So we hope to see you next time. And in the meantime, stay empowered.